Hey, how y'all doing?
Let's get down to the heart of the matter.
You good, man?
Yo, you good, bro?
We got a lot to talk about.
Let's get down to the heart of the matter.
Man, I know being a man ain't easy,
Not easy, not even a little bit.
but we gonna help you get through it.
Yes, sir.
Let's grow.
Let's get down to the heart of the matter.
Welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast.
Learn something new, change your point of view. Let's get down to the heart of the matter.
We're gonna grow together. We're gonna encourage each other.
Take time to heal, express how you feel. Let's get down to the heart of the matter.
Welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast, where our goal is to encourage, enlighten, and educate men and the women that love them. I'm Ed McCrae, and we're really doing this. We're really doing this. Like, I'm here, I'm in the microphone, you're there, you're listening. We're really doing a podcast right now, which is crazy to me because it's something that has always, I won't say always, but for quite a long time now has been in the back of my mind of, hey, I think I would like to do a podcast or like a radio show or something, but I didn't really have a purpose for it yet. I didn't really know what I wanted it to be about, and I didn't want to just jump out and just do something just to do it. Man, the thing to do is a podcast. Let's do it. I didn't want to do that. And, in the future, we're going to have guests, we're going to have panel discussions, we're going to have interviews, we're going to have all of that. But today it is just you and me, and I need to talk to you about the backstory of how this came to be. I want to talk to you about the purpose of the podcast, what I hope for it to accomplish. And then I want to get into a topic that really is going to kind of set the tone, I think, for this whole season, in a sense. So let's start at the backstory. So around 2018, my wife and I went to Chicago to Pastor John Hanna, who has a 12-hour prayer event that he does every year, like around the middle of the year. I think it was probably like June or July. I think June-ish. So we go to Chicago to this 12-hour prayer event, and it was absolutely amazing. I mean, it was life-changing. It brought my wife and I even closer together. It really opened some things up for us spiritually as a family, and really changed our trajectory. It really did a lot for us. But while we were there, we were visiting with friends of ours, and we went to their church on Sunday. So the church they were going to, the pastor was Apostle John Eckhart. And one of the things that church does that I had never really seen before specifically was they do, most churches would do like a prayer line or altar call. They do that. But then they also, the church moves heavily in the prophetic. So they would also call up those who wanted to receive a prophetic word, wanted to receive a word from the Lord. And so Nina and I went. Said, okay, well, let's go. And so we go, and I wish that I remembered the name of the prophet, the man who prayed and prophesied over me. I don't remember his name, but anyway, we go there and he begins to prophesy over me. And I won't share everything that he said, but I'll share the things that are pertinent to this story of starting this podcast. And one thing you got to know about me is I'm real serious about the word of the Lord and the prophetic, so if you're prophesying to me, I'm not one of those who's going to be falling out and carrying on. I want to listen. So I'm listening. Now, I might fall out and speak in tongues and run around after, but I want to hear and judge what you're saying. I want to, really take in what you're saying the Lord is saying to me, or what the Lord is saying through you to me. And so the thing that really stood out to me the most was he said, hey, I see you with and I'll paraphrase, I see you with like crowns on your head, like a crown on your head. And I see that the Lord has crowned you as a leader. And I see that men are going to come around you, men are going to follow you, and you're going to minister to men, is one of the things I see God getting ready to do for you. And, it was interesting because sometimes you hear a word and you receive it, that it's the Lord, but you're like, yeah, okay. Like you receive it, but you're like, okay. You kind of tuck it away. Like, all right, let's see what happens. Because as a preacher and as a minister, and I've been preaching since I was probably 13, 14, and really seriously accepting the call to preach around 17. I have fought tooth and nail not to be compartmentalized or put in a box. You're a youth minister, you're a men's minister, you're a singles minister. Like I've really fought not to be to be categorized in that way. Because I feel I've always felt a greater call, and I had never really felt like a specific call to minister to men. And so I received it, and I received what he said, and I tucked it away. So we went on. About a year later, so this was 2018 that we went to the prayer conference and I received that word. 2019, at the end of 2019, specifically after coming off of our anniversary, we went on a cruise, which is my favorite type of vacation to do. We went on a cruise, and coming back from that cruise and the rest of that year, and then of course 2020 was the pandemic, so leading into the pandemic, I went into, just out of nowhere, just such a season of depression. And I didn't even know what it was at the onset of it. The Lord ultimately had to reveal to me what it was. But I went into such a season of depression. And my season of depression was wrapped up and tied up in my job. And the reason why it really sunk in on me coming off of the cruise was because I was going back to it. And I didn't want to. Now, for context, when we first moved to, I went to school for audio engineering in 2017. All right, in 2017, I went to school for audio engineering. And I felt like, okay, I'm going to audio engineering school. I'm doing very well in school, right? I'm killing it. I'm going to leave here. And we were getting ready towards the end of that time. The Lord had revealed that it was time for us to move from New Jersey to Philadelphia. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to, I was driving for like Lyft and stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm leaving audio engineering school. When we move, I'm going to leave my job. And I, as a tech, as an applications trainer, I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to drive for Lyft or Uber full time, and I'm really going to go hard after this audio engineering stuff, this music, or and really really push this is what I'm going to do. And the Lord was like, no. My wife and I had talked about it, and we were kind of heading that way. And one thing that we do is whenever we're making a huge decision like that, we like to sit down and talk to her parents, or my father and mother-in-law. We really value their wisdom. And coming away from that conversation, it was just clear that, the Lord was like, no, now's not the time for that. And so I'm like, okay, gosh, I was really looking forward to, I had my resignation letter typed up and everything. And I shifted and said, you know what? No, not going to do this. Also, I had seen in my childhood or in my young adulthood what happens when my dad just went and launched out and tried to run and do stuff, and it just wasn't time. My mom wasn't really on board. They weren't, he didn't really consult her about it, and they weren't on the same page, and it really did very bad things for their marriage, and ultimately ended up in separation and divorce. And so in my mind, I'm already like, well, you know what, Lord, if my wife is not on board with this, I'm not going to do it. And so I didn't do it. But I still had the desire that this is not what I want to do with my life. This is not what I want to do. I've done this for many years. This is not what I want to do. I want to pursue this engineering and this music and this music production. And so, I was just going through life, because as men, that's what we do. When you're the head of your house, you do what you have to do. And so I already had the Lord like, no, now is your time to support your wife, make sure everything is held down at home so that she can find herself and really figure out who she is, and pursue what it is that I'm putting in her path. I need you to stay put. So that's what I did. But coming off of this cruise, I tell you, I just felt stuck. I just felt like I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I felt like nothing was moving for me. I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I could not rationalize how this thing was ever going to change. I couldn't rationalize how this thing was ever going to change. It's like, well, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And, I enjoy teaching, but I know this is not my purpose. Teaching, applications and Excel and Microsoft stuff. Like, I know I'm good at it. I'm very good at what I do. But I know this is not my purpose. I know that there's greater things in ministry and in music and in audio engineering that I know, Lord, you have before me, but I just could not see a way out or a way to get to it. And I really sunk down into just a state of just depression. And I really, to be honest, because that's what we're going to be on this podcast, we're going to be transparent, we're going to be honest, I really kind of shut down. And I really kind of checked out in some areas. Where I was still physically there, I was still physically home, I was still physically going to work, I was still physically present, but man, I was just in a bad mental space. Not to the point where I'm like, man, I want to kill myself or something like that, but to the point of like, I'm not trying to kill myself, but Lord, if you were to take me to heaven, if you were to cause my life to end, I wouldn't fight you on it. Like that, I don't know if you can understand. Like I'm not trying to actively end my life or anything like that. But if it's my time, it's my time. I'm good. That's legit where I was. And during this time, I didn't fully understand what was going on, and the Lord began to reveal to me, man, you're depressed. You're dealing with depression. And disappointment. And then just other things just begin to come up. Other things begin to come up that I begin to look for resources to help me. I begin to look for resources. The Lord began to reveal to me that I was dealing with insecurity. I was having issues during this time with pornography really being a temptation for me in ways that it hadn't been for quite some time. And just a lot of old stuff really that I thought was done with, really began to resurface. And one of the things the Lord revealed to me was, man, you're dealing with not only depression, but insecurity. And I'm like, man, wow, okay. Let me look for resources. Let me look for a Bible study. Let me look for something to help me. And I went and I looked for resources for men for like insecurity and all that kind of stuff. And literally everything that I found was geared towards and directed towards women. Everything that I found was directed at women or by women or to women, even written by men. It was towards women. And I said, man. And it's like right in that moment, it's like a light bulb went off. And it's like the Lord was saying to me, the reason why you can't find what you need is because I'm going to use you to create what you need. And I realized that I was at a point in my life where I was wrestling with manhood. And I was really wrestling with the position that the Lord had given me as a man, specifically pertaining to being the head of my house. Now, I know there's lots of new ideas, and we're going to get into all this over the different seasons we're going to do. I believe, and I believe the Bible backs me up on this, that as a man, as a husband, you are to be the head of your house. You are to provide financially. You are to protect. You are to cover in all kinds of different ways, not just financially. And I realized that I loved my wife, but in that moment, I hated being a husband. Let's let that sit for a minute, because that's heavy, man. I realized, I said, man, I love my wife. I have an amazing wife. She is amazing. Supportive, sexy, beautiful. I'm attracted to her. Like, she can cook. She pushes me. She's my best friend. I really love my wife. It's not like I'm bored and I want to go out and try to get with another woman or start over. No, I don't want to do that. I love my wife. But this husband thing, I'm good with that. Like, I love my wife, but man, this being a head of the house and being a husband and having to stay on this job and feeling hemmed up because on the one end, I know my wife is not on board with me leaving. On the other side, I got the Lord like, no, you need to stay put. In the middle, my brain is like, you're the head of the house. If you leave your job, how are you going to pay rent? How is this going to happen? How are y'all going to have food? How are you going to pay for your son's tuition? How are these things going to happen? You're the only income. Like, I felt hemmed up. I really did. And the Lord began to show me that I needed to become the resource that I was looking for and could not find. And glory be to God, he brought me out of that horrible pit. He brought me out, and as we go through different episodes, I'll refer back to this and talk about it, but through mentorship, he brought or changed or shifted a relationship that was already in my life and brought great mentorship through seasons of intense prayer and fasting. The Lord brought me out. And on the other side of that, towards like the end of last year, December of 2022, January of 2023, the Lord laid on my heart and kind of brought things full circle. The Lord said, I allowed you to go through that to get a better insight on manhood. And now on the other side of that, I understand a lot more what it is to be a man. And the things that men go through. For a lot of times prior to that, I was a man, I was in my 30s and, going into my 40s, but sometimes, I still felt like a little kid. Like I was a man, but I felt like, man, I'm trying to figure this thing out. Going through that season changed me in a way where I see manhood differently. And it was difficult for me going through that because I had to go through it alone in many ways. I didn't have words for it. My wife could tell something was up with me and she would always check in and she would encourage me, and what have you. But I really had to go through that alone. My father passed away, and during this time, I really began to miss my dad because I recognized and I understood him a lot more going through this time. I understood, even though I don't agree with it, I understood why he left his job and went to pursue his own business. I understood different things that I would see him do or hear him say more, and I wished that I could have talked to him during that time to really pick his brain as an adult about, man, what is happening to me? What's going on? So all that to say, here I am on the other side of that, and I want to be able to minister to men because I know I'm not the only one who has gone through that, or you might be going through what I went through right now. And you might have a lot of questions, and you might be looking for a resource to talk about and understand manhood, and you can't find any. Well, guess what? You just found one. This is going to be a resource for you. And so the purpose of this podcast is going to be a resource for men and the women that love men to be able to unpack and understand and deal with manhood, man. How do I do this man thing? How do I do that? This podcast is going to educate men and women on men's issues. I also want to uplift and encourage men. I noticed, and this is where I really knew that the Lord was calling me to do this at this time in my life. I'll give you a little advice. When something annoys you, it's probably because God has anointed you to deal with it. I'll say that one more time because that was good. When something annoys you and like you can't shake it and other people can just walk past it and just look over it, don't bother them, but it really frustrates you, it's probably because God has anointed you to address it or deal with it. And over like the past year, I started really noticing and getting annoyed and frustrated just with what seemed like the endless volley and volume of negative energy directed towards men, especially on social media. Just men are trash, men don't do this, and men should be doing that, and men ain't no good men out here, and and all this negative energy, all this negativity, where it was almost like the enemy kind of had like turned women against men and turned men against women, where we're all just yelling at each other. Women, you should be doing this, or you blah, blah, blah. And the women like, well, you should be doing this, and just all this bickering and negativity. And it really bothered me. And so I want this to be a space where we deal with real issues and we challenge you, but where we uplift and encourage men. I want you to leave this space encouraged. I want you to leave this space built up and better than you are. And most importantly, this podcast is going to be designed to turn the hearts of men back towards God. That is a heavy goal of mine. If you can't tell, I'm a Christian. I hope that doesn't bother you. If it does, stick around anyway. It's going to be all right. I promise you. We're going to get through it. But we're going to look at things from a Christian perspective, from a biblical perspective, and from a mature perspective. I want to bring people on here who are experts or who have great experience in their different fields as we talk about money, as we talk about marriage, especially marriage. There's a lot of bad information out there about marriage. As we deal with finance, as we deal with health, as we deal with spirituality, all these different things, we want to approach it from a mature perspective. Because the Bible says, when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spoke as a child, and I understood as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. And we're going to put away childish things on this podcast. We're going to approach life and approach this manhood thing from a mature perspective. All right. I'll be right back. And I want to get into really our first topic that is going to set the tone for the rest of this season and really the rest of this podcast. I'll be right back.
Let's get down to the heart of the matter.
Hey guys, I want you to know that prayer is extremely important. Extremely important. There is no way that you're going to live this life successfully, not only as a Christian, but as a Christian man, without having a lifestyle of prayer. We are the heads of our houses. We need to be able to develop a culture of prayer in our own personal life and also in that of our homes. Well, at the top of the year, the Lord laid on my heart to do a 21-night virtual prayer just for men. And so that's what I did, because when the Lord says to do something, it's probably a good idea for you to do it. So that's what I did. We did 21 nights of virtual prayer, and all 21 nights of prayer are available for you right now on my YouTube channel, Ed McCrae Speaks. All right, you can go there. You can play it. It's in a playlist. You can just let it play in your house. Let it play as you're going through your day. Let it play as you're working out. It will really, really bless you. The Lord really walked us through a variety of different teachings on prayer, a variety of different prayer points, and I want that to be a blessing to you. So you can go right to my YouTube channel, again, Ed McCrae Speaks, or you can go to tinyurl.com/men's 21 night prayer. That's tinyurl.com/one word men's 21, the number 21, night prayer. Go ahead and check that out. Let it be a blessing to you. So, the theme of this season is clearing the air. Clearing the air. We need to clear the air because I feel like there are a lot of misconceptions as to what it is to be a man, specifically concerning what men need, how men think, how men feel, how men operate. Do men feel? Do men think? And there's a variety of topics that we're going to cover during this season, and I'm going to have different guests on, some that you may know, some that you may not, but it's going to be great. And the first misconception that I want to deal with today that's really going to set the tone for this season and really open your mind up and your heart up for the rest of this podcast as long as it's in existence is the idea that all men need is sex. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. You need more than sex. Now, if you look around, and some of you are probably like, that ain't true, and it's probably because you're not getting any right now. But the reality is, after you get you some, and it's great, and you've been living, you've been holding out, my brother who's single, you've been holding on to the horns of the altar. You've been tarrying in your room. Jesus. Come on, Jesus, and help me. And you've been holding on. And you getting married. And the day is coming. I'm telling you right now. You're going to finally get you some. It's going to be great. Good God from on high. It's going to be amazing. The angels are going to ascend and descend from above. Oh my God. Fantastic. And after it's done, you're going to need more than just sex. I'm sorry to tell you. You are not just a sexual being. Now, I know when we look around the world and we look around TV and we look at social media and we look, at advertisements and all these different things, it might seem like as long as a man, your basest needs, your most primal needs are satisfied, that you'll be good. What do they say? You've heard this before. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Feed him real good, sex him real good, shut up, and he'll be fine. I'm here to tell you that is not true. There's also this idea that I think there is some truth to it, but when we get in and look at it from a nuanced perspective, I think we've oversimplified this idea that men are really simple. Men are simple. And women are really complex. There's some truth to that in certain areas, but I think we've oversimplified it to again think that, women need their emotional needs met, and they need to feel secure and covered, and they need to have their sexual needs met, and they need to have their financial needs met, and they have all these different things that need to be met for them to be okay. And men, like I said, just give him a sandwich, sex him real good, and just be quiet for a little bit, and he'll be fine. And that is not true. Sex is only going to satisfy one area of your life or one part of your being. That is really just the icing on the cake. It's really not who you are. We inundate ourselves, and more so are inundated so often with sexual images that it's often just at the forefront of your mind to make you think that if I just satisfy this, I'll be good. But that's not the case. You turn on TV, my wife and I, we were watching something we were watching. I think it was like a golf commercial. I don't even know what it was a commercial for. But, there's just this half-naked woman just dancing around or doing something. And my wife is like, what is that? What is this a commercial for? I'm like, I have no idea. I think it was like for a golf commercial or something like that. My point is, even advertisers, what do they say? Sex sells. So we're just bombarded with just sexual images. And just sex all the time. And I want you to know that you need more than sex. When I was going through my season of depression, I'm here to tell you that sex was not my issue. Selah. I have been abundantly blessed. Woo, when I think of the goodness. Oh, glory. I'm sorry. Sometimes you got to let your mind run back. Sex was not my issue. That was not my issue. There were other things and other needs in my life that were unfulfilled. And once you get past, and again, I know we joke about it, we laugh about it because, when you're not getting any, or you're waiting on the Lord, or wherever you are in life when it comes to sex, that's at the forefront of your mind because that's not in your life. But I'm here to tell you, you need to be concerned about your emotional health. You have feelings, bro. You have feelings. And you need to be able to explore those feelings. Having feelings is not feminine. Having emotions is not feminine. God gave you emotions too, brother. And your emotions are just as valid as your wife, your girlfriend, your woman's emotions. You have emotions too. We get sad too. We get hurt too. Now we can't, it's not socially appropriate always for us to show it like that. It's very socially appropriate for a woman to just to have a meltdown and break down and cry and everything, and everyone will rally around her. If a man does that too long, what are folk gonna say? Be a man. Shut up. What does that mean? Shut up. Nobody want to hear that. You a man. Be a man. Be strong. Well, guess what? Superman was also Clark Kent. And even Superman had kryptonite, where even Superman needed to go back to the Fortress of Solitude and heal and rest and deal with some stuff. And as much as you try and I try to perpetrate like we are the man of steel and nothing penetrates our armor, the reality is when you do some self-analysis, you got some emotional stuff that you need to deal with as well. Could it be that the reason you have so many sexual partners is because there's something in you that's unfulfilled and you really have been convinced that sex is going to solve the problem for you? Could it be that that's why you can't stay faithful in a relationship? Could it be that that's why you've had multiple temptations or slip-ups when it comes to infidelity with your wife or even with someone, with your girlfriend, someone you have said that you were committed to, and you just can't seem to stay faithful? Could it be that sex is not your issue? I would like to submit humbly to you that there might be a deeper need emotionally. There might be some hurt, some trauma, something that you are lacking emotionally that you do not fully appreciate or understand, or that you have not been given the space as a man and the freedom as a man to address and to deal with because you're afraid that you're going to be considered a punk and a sissy. And it's funny because, what have you seen whenever a man has broken down? We've seen different celebrities, right? Like break down, have emotional moments on camera, on social media. And the first thing that happens is they get clowned for it. And oftentimes as men, we are not given the freedom and allowed to emote the way that we need to. You need more than sex, bro. You're an emotional being. You are a spiritual being. Did you know that? Did you know that? It is not just your flesh and your body that needs to be satisfied. It is not just your soul that needs to be satisfied. That's where your emotions and your memory and stuff is. Your spirit needs to be satisfied as well. You need a relationship with Jesus. There are spiritual needs. You need a pastor, sir. You need a covering in the spirit. You need to spend time with God. You need to pray. You need to fast. You need to be involved in ministry. There are spiritual needs that you have, sir, that are not being met. And again, I would submit to you, maybe that's why you're having issues with promiscuity. Sex isn't your issue. You're getting sex. Whether you should be or not, you're getting sex. And you're still not satisfied because you are made to be more than a sexual being. You need to have your emotional needs met. You need to have your spiritual needs met. And it's my goal that during this podcast, and especially as we get into this season, that we begin to address these things. Your mental health matters too. Your happiness matters too. I know they told you, happy wife, happy life. I'm here to tell you that is a lie. I'm here to tell you. Now, as a good man, of course you want your wife to be happy. Of course you do. And you, as the head of your house, will go through seasons where you have to sacrifice what you want to do for the good of the family and for the good of your wife. But this thing where you just go through life not ever dealing with your mental needs and your emotional needs and your happiness never matters, it's always everyone else's. Nah, fam. That's not how God wants you to live. Well, man, back in the day, man, men just, grandpa just went to the plant every day and he did what he needed to do. He was a man. And grandpa was depressed. And grandpa had that bottle that he used to drink every night. It wasn't juice in there. Trying to cope. And one day, grandpa took the garbage out and never came back. Because your happiness matters too. And if there is not a space for you to be able to emote and be honest and be open and deal with more than just your sexual needs, you are not going to live a fulfilled life, and you're not going to reach the purpose that God has set for you. And so during this podcast, we're going to address all these things. And I want you to begin to open your mind up, and I want you to begin to ask yourself, what do I need? And this podcast might just spark some things or just be the start of it. You might need to go to therapy. You might need to go and seek pastoral counsel. You might need to go and sit down with somebody where you can really get down into the dirt of manhood and really begin to hash out what it is that you're dealing with and what it is that you're going through and what it is that you are feeling. And stop acting like you're not feeling what you are feeling. Yes, as a man and as a leader and as the head of your house, sometimes we need to put our feelings aside, or we need to move forward with what we need to do in spite of how we feel. But that does not mean that we don't need to, at some point, deal with our feelings and our emotions and our mental health and our spiritual health. I'll be right back, guys. Sit tight. I'll be right back. We're going to wrap this thing up.
Next time on the Hearts of Men podcast.
This is my brother and one of my closest friends, Pastor Selwyn Arnold Jr.
You want to avoid situations where you have that disconnect between how people see you outside your home and how you are seen inside the home. There's nothing worse than when you are, as they say, a public success in the eyes of others, but at home you're a private failure.
And I think that sometimes we miss an opportunity to do ministry together because we don't allow our wives to be who they are.
Who says, as men in the home, men in ministry, who says we have to do it alone? Who said that?
Now your wife is upset and your response is, oh, you don't believe in me. Or, oh, he'll flip it where it's like, oh, well, she's against my ministry. No, she's tired of you cheating on her.
Let's get down to the heart of the matter.
Wow, I am looking forward to this next episode. I'm looking forward to the rest of this season. I'm looking forward to this podcast as a whole because I really believe that this is going to really empower you. This is really going to enlighten you. This is really going to encourage and educate you. This is going to be good food for the soul. And I can't wait to get into it. Listen, I need you to share this. Share it. All right? Get the word out. Share it with other men in your life, your brother, your cousin, your uncle, your father, friend, your son, your neighbor, whoever. Just share it with them. Let them know. Also, I want you to subscribe. Hit subscribe. Wherever you're listening to this, hit subscribe, right? Turn on notifications. That way you can be notified when new episodes are coming out, and you don't want to miss a thing. All right? So until next time, keep growing, guys. We're going to walk this manhood thing out together. Let's grow.